Okay, we're back from recess. We'll resume our meeting. We'll start off with public comment. Do we have any public comment? Okay. Being no public comment, we'll move on to update of events. Anybody have anything to update on that?
See, I went to the hospital board meeting and had a brief conversation with the extension people.
For the Commissioners Community Update, there was a number of meetings this week. I went to the Board of Crime Control meetings, but also BOR had a, Bureau of Reclamation had a meeting of all the concessionaires around the lake. And there still is nothing conclusive with the mussels. It's going to take 3 years because there was nothing conclusive to start. If they get 3 years of clear tests, then we will be declared mussel free. But as far as the inspections, they are going to address the contamination signs because it is not a contamination area. It is clean. The water they use is just water, but it's at about 140 degrees. So that'll be a big change next year. They have cleaned approximately 500 boats coming out of Goose Bay, 800 coming out of Hellgate, the entire north end, about 900, and 3,000 out of Silos. So that's a significant number, about 46,000 statewide. And then the other thing is there was a meeting the following night on the Silos. Bureau of Reclamation rebuilt Goose Bay campground about 2 years ago. We are looking at silos. Of course, the commission was part of the partnership to get the feasibility study on that. But instead of Department of, or Bureau of Reclamation dictating what the campground would look like with improvements, we would like this to be driven by the citizens who use silos. So some of the things to look at is a search and rescue area there at the silos as part of this plan. Also fire. A fire station would reduce people's property taxes. And then some of the immediate needs that were addressed is that kids are swimming in areas. There's not really a designated area, so they're actually swimming in areas where there's a lot of boats. So we want to address some of those immediate needs before there's a tragedy. So any questions on those? All right. So that's it.
Okay, meetings, phone calls, business as usual. COS reviews. Everything not. Anything else for discussion or comment for our next next 10 or 10:15? Running ahead, we already, after we visited WC, we went through our mail and our claims, payroll claims, so we're bound and right ahead on our schedule here, so we've got a few minutes yet. Our next agenda item is, open up again if there's any public comments.
Franklin, has there been any discussion on the police department, and did you say you were in recess or something? Did I miss part of this meeting?
Well, we started early at 9. WWC, or the engineering, was here on some of these bridges and the Deep Creek project.
Okay, but you haven't discussed the police department
No.
or anything like that yet?
No. And then we had some time after that, so we went through our mail, we've already went
Okay.
through our mail and did our claims and so on. So that's why we're a little ahead here.
Okay.
next Monday is Labor Day, so we'll have a meeting on the 5th. Any other comments or any questions from the commissioners while we're in this lull?
No.
Speech down here. You didn't answer me.
No.
While we're in a holding pattern, I just got this from Dwight Thompson. That's the letter he came in and talked to us about, Mike. He would like us to address Montana Department of Transportation on a turn lane, or another one just north of town. We've been also asked to address Montana Department of Transportation about the recent fatality. So just sharing that with you, we get a letter drafted and get that off, and I'll bring that to you before moving forward. I think he just must have, is he here? No. So I'm guessing he left it just while we were here this morning.
Ten 15, we'll go back to our agenda item. Jody Moore, discussion of public safety concerns, staffing issues. Yeah, oh, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. You wanna come on up or?
thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak today. I've really struggled with what to say to you and how to say it. I've written and rewritten what I wanted to say several times. Yesterday, our pastor spoke on the book of James and the power of the tongue to destroy. Today, I'm here to speak the truth in love. I hope and pray that my words and actions today honor my husband and my God. On May 16th, at 4:30 a.m., my doorbell rang. I was not very awake, so I was not sure it was the doorbell until it rang a second time. I hopped out of the bed and rushed to the front door, thinking Mason must have forgotten his keys. When I got to the front door, I looked out the window and saw multiple feet in boots, just like my husband wore. And I knew something was wrong. I thought for a split second, maybe he's just hurt. I rushed to open the door, and then I saw the sheriff's face, and I knew Mason wasn't just hurt. That moment, I started going numb. I just could not believe it was real, and I still can't. I thought that was the worst moment of my life, but the worst moment was a couple of hours later when I had to walk upstairs, wake my 3 children up, and tell them that their daddy was with God now, and then he would not be coming home to us. The reason why I share this painful memory with you is because I do not want any other wife, child, mom, dad, brother, sister, or friend to have to go through what we are going through. So many people have asked me how I am doing. I usually answer I'm okay or I'm good, but the truth is I'm not okay and I'm not good. I am heartbroken, devastated, sad. I feel like I have a wound that is bleeding, and yet I somehow have to find a way to walk around with that bleeding open wound. I am also angry because I feel that we are not giving our law enforcement officers the tools and support to keep them as safe as possible. One of my biggest disappointments is that I did not speak up when I found out Mason was working shifts by himself. I was very worried and upset about this, and I told Mason I was upset about it, and that I thought it was crazy, and he just brushed it off. I found out after his death that he was worried about the fact that they worked alone, but I'm sure he did not want me to worry about it. I really wish I would have come to talk to you 3 sooner and expressed my worry and frustration about the fact that our law enforcement officers were out there alone. One officer alone patrolling an entire county, 1,237 square miles in size. No officer, no law enforcement officer, detention officer, or dispatcher should ever work alone. Not only for their safety, but also because of all of the scrutiny that law enforcement are under these days. In addition, they need help, support, and backup. Having another officer closer the morning when Mason was ambushed might have prevented those individuals from being able to turn back around and shoot Mason again and again, ensuring that he would not survive. It was far too easy for those individuals to take out an officer that was trained, had lots of experience, and was ready to fight and protect to keep us safe. And that just breaks my heart, that he did not even get a chance to fight back. And we as a community lost a heck of a good man and a great officer. And I lost my heart. Another disappointment is I do not understand why, when an officer calls a license plate number, why does that number not correlate to their driver's license number so that criminal history is accessible before the officer has to get out of the car? My husband did not know the criminal history of these individuals. He only knew that they were not stopping. When Mason was hired by Broadwater County, so many people came to me and said how relieved and glad they were to have a deputy on the Three Forks end of the county. Prior to my husband working with them, we rarely ever saw a Broadwater County deputy down in Three Forks. It is my understanding that 53% of the call volume for the sheriff's office comes from Townsend. Therefore, their response time to Three Forks in the end of the county from Townsend is 20 to 25 minutes. From the Lazy HM Estates, it's 40 to 45 minutes. From Hellgate Highway 284, it's 50 to 55 minutes. And from the top of Highway 12 East, 45 to 60 minutes. By the way, these numbers are running code at 100 miles an hour. And don't ask me how I got those numbers. Additionally, running code from Townsend to Three Forks or from the north end of the county to the south end is dangerous because of all the wildlife, weather conditions, etc. The population of Broadwater County is approximately 6,000 to 7,000. The last population study was done in 2015. There is an average of 19,285 vehicles traveling through Broadwater County every day. The Three Forks side of the county and the north end of the county is growing fast. In the last fiscal year, there were 95 septic permits applied for. And as you know, none of that was in the city of Townsend, obviously. The population numbers of the county also does not take into account the transient increase in the summer from people visiting the lake. It is also my understanding that the mills delegated to the sheriff's office in 2005 was 45.50. And now the mills delegated to the sheriff's office is 34.70. And I heard in your meeting on 8/22 that you said, Laura, that the mills stayed the same this year, but they would be going down next year. Additionally, the last raise, outside of the cost of living raise that the sheriff's office received was 2 years ago. And in order for then Sheriff Brenda Ludwig to get that raise, she had to sue the county commissioners. Here are some salary numbers from 2016 for you. A deputy sheriff in Broadwater County starting salary is $20.40. The average starting salary in the state of Montana for deputy sheriff is $22.71. The starting salary for a dispatcher is $14.03 per hour in Broadwater County. The average for the rest of the state is $16.73. And you should know that I was at Wendy's the other day in Bozeman, and they're starting at $12 an hour with a $300 sign-on bonus. It's only $2 difference an hour. From the moment I was notified that Mason was killed, Chaplain Eric Crush was there. Eric was practically with us 24/7 at the direction of his sheriff. And I say it that way because whenever I asked him a question, he would always say, I have to check with my sheriff. If you attended or watched Mason's service, you saw Eric standing behind me while I spoke. Eric also stood behind me at Mason's South Carolina service. His support and friendship has been invaluable to our family. He missed a lot of time with his family while he took care of us and missed time from his job. I heard that when the sheriff asked for Eric to get paid for the time that he was supporting us, that request was met with opposition by you, Commissioner Ober. Eric was not on vacation. He was supporting the family of your officer that was killed protecting the people of your county. And last but not least, a couple of days after my husband was killed, I came to the sheriff's office to hug everyone and mourn in private before we had to go out in public. It is my understanding that you three were all invited to come to visit with us, but only one of you showed up, Commissioner Mike Delger. I would like to think that if I were a county commissioner and one of my deputies was killed, I would drop everything to come hug and show my support to that deputy's family. If I could not come, then I certainly would call. Senator Steve Daines called me and met with me. Congressman Gianforte met with me. Donald Trump Jr. called me. Attorney General Tim Fox has been to my house, and I even received a letter from the President of the United States, Donald Trump. But no call or visit by Broadwater County Commissioners Obert and Slifka. My husband was a strong believer in the Constitution and right for citizens to protect themselves. One of the things that Mason loved about Montanans was the fact that most want to protect themselves. And their properties, and he wanted to support and come alongside those citizens to help when needed. Mason was a quiet observer, always watching and observing and ready to protect. Always. He never turned off the police officer in him. It was in his blood and part of his DNA. I will continue this for him by observing, watching, and protecting those that protect us. In summary, I would like your commitment to protect and prioritize law enforcement in Broadwater County, not only by supporting our law enforcement, but by being fiscally responsible with the other decisions that you make for the county. I would like for you to reconsider the mills that are allotted to the sheriff's office. Please provide proper funding so that no officer works alone ever, and also provide proper coverage with proper response time to the entire county. I also would like you to look at the Broadwater County Sheriff's employees make in comparison to other counties. It should not take a lawsuit to get a raise. I want to make it abundantly clear. I am not asking you to raise taxes. I am asking you to look at the financial structure of the county, make wise decisions with taxpayer money, and treat it as if it were your own money. Those that protect us and risk their lives should not be left to fight for the financial scraps left on the table. I have one final comment. On the night that Mason was killed, he left the office for the last time headed south. For some reason, he went back to Townsend, drove past Rocky Mountain Supply, the town pump, and then headed back south, home to us. But he never made it. He was within sight of our house when those individuals passed him. Nobody knows for sure why Mason turned back around and went back to Townsend when he was initially headed south. But I know. It was because he cared. Because he was doing his job. He wanted to make sure everything looked good before he headed home. And that decision cost him his life. So I want you to think about that. At this time, I would like to recognize all of the Broadwater County Sheriff's Office employees that are here and have them stand, please. Sheriff Wynn Meehan, Under Sheriff Brandon Harris, Captain Seth Wenzel, Tammy Allen, Sergeant Jamie Buck, Senior Deputy Jason Kostelecki, Deputy Nick Rouser, Deputy Mark Wood, Detective Marvin Riddick, Deputy Tony Cordova, Deputy Michelle Frost, Deputy Lee Zimmerman, Cal James, Eric Crush, Supervisor Rebecca Jones, Supervisor Delaware Steingruber, Shauna McCartney, Steven Hinkie, Tara Matthews, Kylie Howard, Sarah Peeler, Corporal Tiffany Mowry, Braden Mazzolo, Mike Johnson, Sergeant Johnny Henry, Lane Grove, Dominic Stefano, Nurse Karen Kuglius, Sergeant Don Kynett, and Mike Wenzel. These are my brothers and sisters. Do these officers that lace up their boots, put on their vests, and leave their children and families to protect us, do they have your commitment to protect and prioritize law enforcement in Broadwater County? And I would like a response to that question.
Could you repeat the question?
Do these officers that lace up their boots, put on their vests, and leave their children and families to protect us, do they have your commitment to protect and prioritize law enforcement in Broadwater County?
Thank you, I wanted that for effect, absolutely.
Yes, that's for sure. I know I was with the sheriff's department for many years as a reserve deputy.
Yes, sir.
Most definitely.
Thank you. Would you guys please remain standing even when you sat down? Stand back up.
Got a lot of people sitting behind me, Jody.
I know, I'm sorry. Now making me nervous. Is there any other law enforcement in the room? Okay. I would like to ask those of you that are here for this meeting and those that will watch this later to commit to protect and prioritize our law enforcement officers by being aware of the decisions that our elected officials are making and holding them accountable for their actions. Do I have this commitment from you?
We will.
Yes.
Thank you for your time and for allowing me the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you. I know
Thank you, Joe.
it's tough on you. I'd like to apologize for that meeting. I don't recall being notified of that meeting. Probably was, but I did, I spaced it off.
Thank you.
And I'm not good at situations like that either.
No, I understand it would have been difficult, but thank you.
We'll move ahead. 5:30 agenda item was solidify the fiscal year 17-18 countywide budget, market adjustments and decisions. Debbie and Michelle, you have something to report or comment?
It's more of our work process in establishing our budget. We still have some departments that we need to solidify. General fund's still in the negative. And we still have district court to break even.
How many departments are still?
Got new handouts with more current numbers than what you guys have had. The ones in yellow, well, general fund's up top, but the others in yellow are the ones that we're still needing to look at. Some of these are grant work I'm still working out with Health Clinic to straighten the distributions out. I met with her after that, after our meeting today. And those will be fine, because they're mostly grants. They just need to work with me a little bit. I'm just meeting with Teresa on that one. And I think we'll get Val's revolving fund set up, that'll take care of that one. And I think you guys are just kind of gonna go over some of our decisions from last working meeting with everybody.
I think that was actually an official meeting.
Was it?
Yeah, so those have been made.
Okay.
One of the things, I was hoping this would be a little bit better. We had the Department of Administration worksheet, cut our mills by 5.11 this year. I know we didn't take any of those from public safety, but we did deplete extension, fair, library, search and rescue.
The second sheet, the ones we touched have a salmon color cells that were
Yes.
reduced.
Senior
You can't
meals,
keep-
Meals on Wheels were cut pretty drastically. So,
Down to
those
like a
all are in the
14% reserve.
positive. 14, okay. And that hasn't quite gotten the general fund
Mm-mm.
out of the negative.
No,
How
there's-
far do we have to go there?
We need about 65,332 more. Which, about 5 mils at 100, at 15,595 each. $15,946 each.
The other one that's still in the negative is district court. How much more do we need there?
She needs $13,943.61. And I went to the actual revenues as much as possible from last year. She cut her budget as close to last year's actuals. If I remember, she might have flipped around a little bit because she was just gonna get less from the state reimbursement. It's just not enough for her.
Is there any more coming in on the reimbursement of juror fees and stuff like that?
I haven't heard any more.
Is it? No more.
It's everything's in.
The city is looking at increasing public safety yearly donation by about 10,000,
I saw that.
which is about 3/4 of a mil. And something that Dave clarified that, I'm not sure if everybody knew or understood, that the total money that they send, 23,000 of that is part of their new vehicle, half of a new vehicle every year. So, we had to make a little changes to show the revenue right and the distribution right between the vehicles and their portion for the salary. There was a misunderstanding somewhere that it was all a separate payment, and it's not for the vehicles. So I've made those changes too, which did affect theirs a little bit, because they transferred it out to their vehicle CIP. So it did change theirs by like 1%. But they're at probably the healthiest at 8% of the floating mills.
Can I ask a question on that? Is that increase, you're specifically talking about
the law enforcement payments from city, that correct?
Mhm.
Okay, because there is a separate payment for city attorney.
Right.
And that is
And that's-
increasing by 10.
Is it?
Yeah.
And we factored it in there because they said they were pretty sure they'd give it to you. They haven't voted yet.
Right, that's true,
But-
we're anticipating, they haven't.
Yeah. No, because that would be separate for yours, it'd be in the general fund.
Right.
Yeah. I went back through everything Friday. Double checked all the revenues, expenditures. Double checked cash balances or any last minute entries, revenues.
Any thoughts, gentlemen?
Even I took the library and made sure we had money for their payment. To cut their mills down a little bit too, so it's close to what they need. And not have a lot of reserves. So they didn't, they won't, they can forego the $10,000 PILT donation this year. Between the taxable mills and any revenues that might come in to get just what they asked for this year. Won't help next year, but I took every penny I could get to try to get the general fund as close to zero as possible.
We're asking everybody in the general fund, except for the county attorney, to withhold their reserves, so essentially cut 10% from their expenditures this year and hold it for their reserves. I'm not sure we can ask the general fund for any further cuts than that. We've also asked the same of those departments that we have cut into their muscle. Again, 4-H, senior citizen meals, Meals on Wheels, library. I just don't know where any more cuts are. You guys have any suggestions? Or alternative sources of revenue. We did look at increasing expected revenue in the general fund to last year's actuals, rather than, cushioning that.
And we're still short. of that
We're
much.
still short.
This is after all of our corrections from last week.
Correct.
I do have a suggestion, but I'd sure like to hear from you guys first. What do you think?
Economic development, there's 22,000 there we could pull, I would think.
We have cut them. The problem is we don't get any federal or state assistance from EDA or CRDC if we don't have skin in the game. It is a federal requirement that we pay for that. So we have cut it, but to cut it out isn't even gonna make a dent, but it sure as heck is gonna hit our economy hard. Right now, we have a couple of things that are just on the verge of coming to fruition. This is not the time to be cutting any of our new growth. As you will remember, last year we had the vast majority of our growth and value was from new construction. We not only increased by 8-point-something% in value, but we also increased by 2-point-something in mills. This year, our growth was in just valuation of existing properties and businesses. We had a 9% increase in value, but because it was existing property and not new property, we lost 5.11 mills. The best thing we can do to alleviate the burden on our taxpayers and still realize an increase in valuation is to have new business growth. That's the best for ag, it's the best for our citizens who don't have businesses, just our property owners.
I disagree with most of the stuff you said. I still feel that money would be better used on, because they can come and request money for PILT like they used to do, if needed.
And that would be fine, it's just this is more transparent, and I think that transparency is the most important thing we can do for our citizens. One of the suggestions, we are gonna have to hold tight to PILT as close as we can this year because we don't know what's coming with this trial. We all know a death penalty case is much more expensive than a homicide, and we just don't know where that money's gonna come from. But in order to just get us out of the negative, we could take $79,000 from PILT and bring up district court and the general fund to zero, with that firm expectation that every department withhold 10% to refill those reserves. After this trial is over, then we will be able to solidify these departments a little bit more. But both the trial and the loss of the 5 mills has just hit the not the economy, but hit our budget hard. Again, no cuts were made in either mills or cuts in spending for public safety. This is just the general fund and then fair, senior meals, extension, 4-H, etc. What do you think of that idea? This is a one-time only, and it needs to be in the resolution as a one-time only.
See, you know, I would probably, I think that if we absolutely had to come to something, I would not have a problem cutting economic development. However, we're gonna cut economic development and take that money out of PILT and stick it back into economic development. But then we're still gonna have to fill everything else with PILT. We're taking $79,000 out of PILT anyway. So we might as well just leave economic development alone and just take the money out of PILT. What does that do to our PILT fund? Where are we at with PILT after we take that out?
We still have a chunk. We've spent this year we're gonna reserve 40 for the ambulance. I don't think we'll need all of that. We got 688 this year. 100 went to the liability insurance. We did start the new fund in Mason's honor to help fund a deputy so that we don't have any shifts that are just one deputy. That's 50,000. And other than that, they were CASA, court assist, child court, what's CASA, Brooke?
Court-appointed special advocate.
Court-appointed special advocate. Food pantry.
Prior to any of those adjustments, I did include 10,000 for the ambulance, the comprehensive health CASA, the match grants for public health. In theory, just those spending, we would have $381,859 left at the end of next year. So as we stand right now, without that infusion, there's 78% reserves. So you take that down, you still have 300,000.
A little over.
A little over, 302,000-ish. Take the 40 for the ambulance, if they need all of that up to the cost, and depending on when we pick it up, could be into next fiscal year.
Right.
So that might not hit this year. That would only take it down to 220,000-ish.
What do you think? Leaves us with about 300,000 in PILT. Gets everybody to zero, and we start rebuilding as soon as we can. We've cut into muscle everywhere that we can. We've increased expectations. I just don't know what's left.
Can I make a suggestion?
Go ahead.
So I wasn't in on the meetings last week. I understand that there was a couple of changes on my budget, which I'll address in a minute, but the reality of this request for deputy, or a deputy county attorney, by restricting it to someone whose position ends 30 days after trial, and with the salary that it's capped at, I'm skeptical that I'm gonna be able to hire anybody. And if those restrictions remain in place, I would say it makes more sense to eliminate that position. That's the amount of money you need, and with the caveat that the city's extra 10,000 was specifically for that, so we may lose 10,000 in revenue. I'll find a way to make it work. One of the ways that I would ask that you make it work is going back to my request on the secretary. There's a couple of things on that. Number one is, we cannot, as an entity, cannot say, this is 8 hours a week and it's for this person. That violates our HR laws. Can't do that. At minimum, I have to advertise internally. There may be multiple applicants. Can't pre-select for a particular person. So what I would recommend is we go back to where we started on that, which was Brooke Dolan was 16 hours a week of secretary time, and the remainder of the week victim advocate. Now she's full-time victim advocate with a commensurate increase in responsibility. So instead of those 16 hours coming over, I got 8 of those hours. I would ask for a restoration of a little more of the secretary time, and how we actually dice that, I don't know what the answer is. My guess is that I would initially try it with 8 hours and see if we can make it work, and if not, we have the ability to do something, and obviously I would come back and talk to you before we do that. But that is a higher priority than the deputy. Honestly, I need it badly, but we'll make it work somehow without the deputy. Particularly because if you're telling someone, let's say the trial's next July, you're done in August, well, it's already September. I don't think I'm gonna find someone for a 11 or 10 month job. I don't think I'm going to. Especially in Townsend. If we were in Helena, maybe, but it's a little painful. I think that's the thing to do at this point. Obviously, the thing that I absolutely have to have is the litigation fund for the experts, and I know that's something that I think you've already funded that.
Yes.
So that's what I'm offering up.
We've already funded the secretary for the 8 hours, so you're saying, how many hours do you want? What's the
Well,
plan again for the secretary?
I had asked for up to 20, then at one point they had gone up to 28, so I would ask for up to 20. So if that becomes, honestly, it's been a little bit of a, because we haven't been finalized, I haven't had the final, here's how we will dice it, but 8 is kind of putting us a little bit behind where we were. So I would ask for more. And it's higher priority to me than the deputy county attorney, as much as I think that position's needed. We'll find a way to make it work.
So would the 2 attorneys from the Attorney General's office then be sufficient for the trial?
Yeah, so my concern isn't the Barris trial, my concern is my additional work on the Barris trial taking me away from the other things. But like I said, we'll find a way to make it work.
Okay, that would about balance the general fund.
I think you should just do it.
Yeah, I don't think you should be on the blunt end of that trial that way either. I mean, that's, nobody predicted it, but it's fallen all on your shoulders, is what it appears to be, and you're taking the brunt.
No, I have people helping me with the burden, so, but, keep in mind that next fiscal year there will be, more expenses. So next fiscal year, I'll probably be coming back by then, we'll know if the trial's moved, for example. And we'll make those adjustments as far as, I think, a lot closer mark of what that full price tag is. Plus, we have the request to the counties, which I have your edits, and I intended to have that finalized today so we could all review it. I didn't get it done, so I'll have it done by the end of today, and I'll email it around everybody.
And what is that?
The request to the other counties for assistance.
The letter.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm gonna recommend that we add Gallatin to that list, because they were, heavily involved, and So that'd be 8 other counties that I think we should talk to, so. I am also continuing, Wayne and I are talking about the mill levy situation, so it's not something, just, we haven't come back to you about it, but it's not something we've forgotten or abandoned.
Are you gonna ask for an amount or to see what the counties would, how they would answer back?
Well, I think we need to all have that discussion together, so I'll put that, the draft that I send back, I'll probably have a proposed amount in it, and then, obviously, I think all 5 of us, the 3 of you, myself, and the sheriff should sign the letter, so we all need to be in agreement on that, so.
So then I would suggest that with Corey's suggestion, if there is anything left that we need Debbie to go ahead and take that from PILT, would be minuscule, I would think, and then also solidify district court also with PILT and call the budget done. I know we have some other negatives, but those are the grants, so I would
It'll
think
be
those
done
are
by
fairly.
Wednesday, yeah.
Yeah,
Teresa was wanting to meet with me, but I was on my way down here, so.
okay. And then if you just work with solid waste and silos, I think we're solid.
I don't see, have any other choice but to use the pill. But I think that if we pull that economic development 22,000, and I think there's some more down here we could probably pull a little bit from maybe.
Like
to help
what?
on that.
Franklin? What's your suggestion?
Well, I'm not sure on the rest of them yet, but I think we can, but.
Okay, we're adopting the budget on Wednesday. We've been kind of going through this multiple times every week.
Well, even if we cut economic development, I think like Mike said, and don't mill it and put it in the general fund and then turn around and give that money out of PILT, it's just going through the motions. It's the same net effect. It's not gonna change
Yeah,
anything.
at least we got the leeway there to give them or not. Some years it might, and some years it might not. And this would be one year that it was, the way I look at it. I think library was another one, I think, too, that
Library's a contract with the citizens. They voted.
before it was always, I think, 5,000. Last year, all of a sudden, it was bumped up to that 20,000. So, there's some of that.
Franklin, with all due respect, the county has an obligation to fund a certain percentage of that library fund. There's a financial obligation to it. It's not something we can just decide how much we're
And,
doing.
and